Hey, everybody, we are live for another edition of the Music Nerds podcast that I've been calling Nerdcast, and it is July the 28th, 2025. I'm Teacher on the Radio. We've got Greenberg, Amy Rock, Rick, Gus, and the Gulf of Mexico with us tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to our host for the month, my neighbor here in Cookeville, Tennessee, Gus Creeder.
Hey, everybody, everyone in the call, everybody listening. I hope we're all having a great day. The topic of digging through our own genre histories felt very interesting to me currently because of the time that we're living in musically, where the idea of the solo genre has become one generally of the past. While everyone has always been able to make and release music, the barrier for entry over the last 10 years or so has become so much more vast due to different online music producing programs, as well as platforms like a SoundCloud or Bandcamp, where literally anyone can release their own art. Hell, I've released an EP of guitar and glockenspiel bass tracks on SoundCloud recorded solely on an iPhone that will hopefully never see the light of day. That may seem off topic, but to me, it shows that in the grand scheme of things, everything counts. And music that I listened to throughout my life up to that point would eventually go on to inspire that horrid garbage I made in high school. So, in thinking about what that inspiration truly was, I tried to find a through line. And through some twists and turns, I found that while there was a legible line, the answer was never one genre alone fully engrossing me. It was always more complicated than that. So when I first started choosing the music I wanted to listen to myself, I regularly would gravitate towards what I saw to be the most grandiose. This was a mix of Broadway musicals I probably didn't need to know every word to at that age, and similar vernacularly, maybe even Prince or the boss himself, Bruce Springsteen. These artists and soundtracks oozed necessity. They did whatever they could to grab your ear and help lead you through the tales being told and the emotions being expressed, while still always letting you draw your own conclusions. Meaning that the goofy yet serious and intimate yet world building world of show tunes was something that I immediately understood as stellar. This, along with my adoration for Prince's elastic delivery and Springsteen's pure power, led me down a long, dark road of accessible teenage pop punk from artists such as A Panic at the Disco or 21 Pilots. While in retrospect, more than a little more than a little tonally overbearing, the stories that a Brendan Urie or a Tyler Joseph respectively were telling caught my attention in a way that really nothing had up to that point, and helped me realize something that would change my life forever: that new music can also be good. Now, what I'm going to say next would sound ungodly embarrassing without some prior context. I've heard morsels of hip hop music throughout my whole life, whether it be censored versions of classic pop rap tracks that I'd hear around the dance studio as a kid, or my dad blasting Beastie Boys, Paul Boutique, and Kanye West's Yeezus while conveniently skipping track 6. If you know, you know. Rap music was at least around. And through my little pop punk stint, as much as I may look at someone sideways if they were to refer to 21 Pilots as pop punk, at that point it fit the bill. And I was always most into the tracks where Tyler Joseph was spitting his little white boy raps. Now, you heard me mention earlier the concepts of grandiosity and storytelling being massive draws to me as a listener. And in my opinion, no genre throughout music history has defined these traits like hip hop. And as a Southern rap curious white boy, what did I naturally gravitate to? That's right, Eminem. I mean, the man had won 15 Grammys. He had an Oscar. He's behind some of the biggest rap songs and albums ever recorded. So songs like Lose Yourself and Without Me had me instantly drawn in. And once my mom recommended I check out Stan, damn it, I was in. Around this time, it was 2017, give or take, and I was in middle school. When I was getting into the genre of hip hop, there was an artist who I'd heard of before, but had yet to find a reason to tap into. And his name was Kendrick Lamar. And his new album at the time, Damn, was taking the world and even my Tennessee middle school by storm. And I remember the feeling of listening to this album, Damn, for the first time, and having the feeling. Sorry, like going straight into like one of the most impressive performances I'd ever heard on a track, following this amazing spoken word passage in the opening track, "Blood." Um, I remember it like it was yesterday, and I absolutely wore this album out. To the point that I wasn't necessarily ready to dive into the rest of his catalog, as I didn't want to distract from the love that I was building at this time for this record. One that I believe played a massive role personally in my development as a music listener, encouraging me to really listen to what's being presented to me beyond just the cadence. I was totally unequivocally hooked, but I had listened to Damn at this point too many times, and especially for one eighth grader to handle. So through the power of the internet, I tried to find another artist who could fill the same niche of top of the line hip hop music, not exactly like Kendrick, but with the same amount of care and love put into it. And this leads to an aforementioned artist who requires a bit of a different lens in the year of our Lord 2025, Kanye West. Now, Kanye's made it near impossible to discuss him, let alone his musical output, without like snide looks and remarks. And I do not blame anyone to whom that is the knee jerk response. That said, as a young hip hop fan with real curiosity about what inspired it, Kanye opened the doors in a way that no one else had for me. I remember the first time I ever listened to his debut album, The College Dropout, which luckily, as anyone should, was the first album I started with. Uh, the College Dropout, by the way, right here. I had gotten in some stupid fight with my mom, and to amend it, I went up to her and my dad's shared bathroom upstairs and cleaned it for them. But I decided to check out this artist I had heard so many great things about at that point, and immediately his personability and production chop sent me into a different world. I was fully obsessed with the music, more than anyone else's I had heard at the time, to the point that all I would listen to for probably the next year was different eras of his catalog. And it opened up the doors to all the vast subgenres that make up the hip hop that we know today. I mean, going through his catalog for the first time was the first time I ever heard the heady lyrical raps of Mos Def, or the gritty coke rap of Pusha T, or even the psychedelic pop rap of One Kid Cudi. Even more than that, though, was his sample work, far outside of hip hop. Through Kanye's popularization of the chipmunk soul style of sampling, the act of speeding up vocal stems from soul songs to create a beat for a performer, I was exposed to artists like Gil Scott-Heron, the Isley Brothers, Labi Siffre, even like a Ray Charles, who of course I knew but hadn't given myself the opportunity to really check out on my own, and so many more, personally deepening my love for soul music and that era, and introducing me to some of the greatest vocalists and albums of all time. This would eventually lead me to finding much more curiosity in hip hop, wanting to know how the influences could manifest into the modern music, which eventually led me back to Kendrick Lamar. I remember listening to his intensely critically acclaimed 2015 record, To Pimp a Butterfly, in my 8th grade science class with Mr. Hotzenpiller. And my headphones died about halfway through, which never fun. So the first thing I did when I got home was plug those bad boys in and run it back. And as one of the greatest jazz rap albums ever made, the jazz instrumentals were the first thing to truly stand out to me. Especially on those first few listens. Like as time went on, I would eventually tap into the lyrical nuances of the record. But for the time, I just wanted to hear more jazz. I started getting into different eras of jazz, including classics like Miles Davis's "Kind of Blue," or even "Bitches Brew," through the cool jazz of Chet Baker, all the way to modern jazz like Berlioz. Like it was very important for me. And now, of course, I could continue rambling on this topic for hours. I could talk about different music I discovered through the internet, like a 100 gecs maybe, and the deep hole that sent me down in high school, or different types of experimental pop. I could dive deeper into what I grew up listening to and how that would inspire what would come later, and more. But for now, I am incredibly interested to see what the others here have to say. So I will pass it on to whoever would like to speak next. Thank you.
So, Gus, the first question I have for you, seeing as how hip hop kind of led to your love of jazz, is are you familiar with Guru's Jazzmatazz?
I know Guru's Jazzmatazz. I don't know if I'd call myself familiar.
Okay, I had to ask that before I did anything.
Yes. Awesome question.
I'm happy to know that that particular Kendrick album is steeped in jazz, because now I'm going to listen to it, because I like Kendrick, but I never did a deep dive. And now that you're telling me that To Pimp a Butterfly is steeped in jazz, that gives me more motivation to check it out.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the most famous musicians in the world right now, and the second track on that album is a full free jazz extravaganza. It's really one of the craziest hip hop instrumentals I ever heard, and I had never heard anything like it at that point. It really opened my eyes in a lot of ways.
Very cool.
Yeah. Anyone else who'd love to share? I'd love to hear what you've been looking at.
I mean, I could jump in, but I feel compelled to be polite and let somebody else jump in. So.
Is that if nobody's ready to go, I'm going to just jump. Go ahead and jump. Might as well jump.
Jump,
Gulf of Mexico.
So that's I saw a DBT with Deer Tick and Thelma and the Sleaze with my lovely wife. We haven't gone to a concert together in years, and they have merch that says Gulf of Mexico. It doesn't really mention the band. I don't know if you can see this backwards. It's got the Coolie bird, but I kind of liked it, like a sticker, Anyway, until tonight, I knew we were talking about genres, but I didn't really understand what you were going for, Gus. So this is the most unprepared, and I think I might be kind of, pretty unprepared every time, even when I'm leading it. But now I'm gonna go, and I've talked about some of my progression in music. The most influential thing on my music early on was in my mom's car, where she seemed to have like 5 cassettes: Hot August Nights, a Barbra Streisand, the one where she's got boxing gloves on or something. She's all dolled up with a Superman. It's like I can see him in my head. She listened to Barry Manilow, the Copacabana. Like she was into these contemporary hits back then, and I heard a lot of that in the back seat. My father listened to classical music, which was unapproachable. Neither of them are what you'd call cool parents, good parents, but they weren't cool.
You're describing what every Jewish kid's mother listened to in the Metro Detroit area.
For sure. Yeah. Well, these were all Jewish artists too.
Oh yeah. Plus, I don't know about you, but in my house growing up, we had 8 tracks, and in addition to the Barry and the Neil, but we had the other Barry. We had Barry White and Stevie Wonder. So we had a nice balance going on.
No, we didn't have those people in our house. No, we didn't pick up on them, which makes it interesting, because I've always been fascinated with black music, just as like a Jewish kid in the suburbs. It was like a different world entirely, just several miles away.
Right, especially in Motown. It's exactly. It was a great place to grow up because of that.
We also had a turntable though, and somehow we got a hold of like 5 singles, and those orange and yellow Capitol singles. There was a Beach Boys, Do It Again was one side. I don't remember which was the end. So it's funny, none of these bands I've clung to my whole life. I've come around to the Beach Boys, but then it was somebody had Endless Summer in the house, and that just seemed kind of like it didn't present them in the way we see them now, which is this genius group. It was just they were a pop hit factory. I remember a trip to this record store like a half a mile away. It's amazing that there was a record store then, but I bought Elton John's greatest hits. So this is an early record. I don't know what I was looking for, but I was out there looking for something. I came back with Benny and the Jets. And that's cool. I don't, it's that it still doesn't resonate with me, but that was really important to me. I don't think I have a genre except for like adult pop, except I don't think Elton was really adult.
Well, I have to ask, what led you to me, the band that I most associate with you, and the band that kind of knocked down the doors for you and I and Andy and probably Rick, REM. What led you to REM?
My discovery of REM was like a lot of things. Like I was always a big reader, and I read Rolling Stone, I read Cream, I read Spin. Before zines were sort of reaching me, I read those, and it was a review in Rolling Stone of Murmur, which was like a 4 or 5 star review. And I discovered several bands through those magazines. Cream was the best. Cream was clearly a cut above Rolling Stone. The Rolling Stone was still good stuff, but Cream just had that sort of wicked humor that,
Cream was rude, and I loved all of it.
Here's one that sticks in my head. There's a picture of Hart, Ann and Nancy Wilson, they had a record, Dog and Butterfly.
Yep.
And the caption was, which one's the dog and which one's the butterfly? I mean, it's, I don't know, 35, 40 years, and it's still like the dumb things that catch.
Those captions cracked me up.
They were great.
I was like, I look back at it and I was like, you can't get away with that now. Have you ever seen the Cream documentary?
No, isn't there a documentary for everything these days?
The Cream documentary is worth watching, Joe. You will absolutely love it. And you can't say that now, Scott, because of South Park. Everything's back on the table.
Yes.
We can say things again.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's great.
Like it's all back on the table after the new
God bless, man.
That's awesome, because I didn't think about it in that sense. I just thought it was like one of the biggest fuck yous in the world ever.
Yes.
But as we should take it as an invitation to lay it on.
Yeah,
we didn't just sign $1.5 billion contracts either. So
you're right, Andy. There are documentaries about everything. I think as we speak, there's a documentary being made about our little show.
Yeah, right.
We're filming it right now. This is the documentary.
You're not supposed to know about that.
Yeah, there's other cameras too.
It'll be interspersed with talking heads of ourselves as we're ancient and decrepit.
Well, like Joe, I went to childhood. I even texted Gus yesterday, and I was like, "Am I supposed to go to childhood?" And so like rock and roll, rockabilly. I was obsessed with the Happy Days and the Fonz.
Yeah.
And then my dad turned me on to American Graffiti. I think I was like obsessed with Happy Day and the Fonz and Ron Howard as Richie. And I think my dad was like, well, he's in this other thing here. And then, of course, that was George Lucas's movie before Star Wars. Yep. So I became obsessed with American Graffiti. But Buddy Holly was very formative for me as a small child. I must confess, I also really was into Sha Na Na for a while, also into Elvis, Bill Haley, Chuck Berry, but in the Beach Boys a little bit, but it was really Buddy Holly. And it's funny because, today biopics get such a bad rap, but you guys saw how gaga I was over A Complete Unknown. I just love biopic. I'm a bio.
You like that one?
What?
A Complete Unknown?
Oh, stop, Joe. Okay, but I saw the Buddy Holly story in the theater with Gary Busey as I was 10 or 11 or something. I just thought it was the most incredible thing ever.
I agree.
I used to think of him cast as Buddy Holly, looking at him now.
Back then, it's like Gary Busey had such promise, and it just quickly went so south.
Well, I just loved that movie so much. And then
it's good.
My parents were folkies. My parents were old folkies, so I got the whole folk thing. And it's really funny today because I'm in a lot of Americana and Americana adjacent type groups on Facebook, and people sometimes talk about their Americana origin stories as fans, and everybody's like, well, it was Uncle Tupelo, and then people who want to learn where Uncle Tupelo got the idea, they go to Graham Parsons and the Flying Burrito Brothers, and some people are even like, oh, it was Ryan Adams or something like that. Bless us all. But all that folk that we're listening to and that we see now, people are reminding us because of the popularity of Dylan, of the Greenwich folk revival, Dave Von Ronk, Joan Baez, Peter, Paul, and Mary. But I was listening to all that, plus Pete Seeger, plus Tom Lehrer, who we just lost. I just looked up the song National Brotherhood Week, and there's a great quote from that. So it's a sarcastic, very nasty, sarcastic song. But there's a quote in there that says, "I know there are people in the world who do not love their fellow human beings. And I hate people like that." I just love that. So we had the Tom Lehrer record, Odetta, Peter, Paul, and Mary. And then on my own, it's still before. I think of everything before high school, before REM and U2. I think of everything before Joe and I read about REM and U2 in Rolling Stone magazine in ninth grade or whatever, 10th grade, of the music that was handed to me by my parents and my brother. There's also, of course, the Beatles, the Stones, Simon and Garfunkel. I heard Gus mention musicals. I was a huge musical guy, but it was a trilogy of Jesus Christ Superstar, Godspell, and Hair. And it's so funny because in my little 5-year-old brain, I didn't understand that Jesus was kind of different than Hair. If you watch the movie version of Hair, they're all like taking off their clothes and going skinny dipping. And I thought that was kind of like the same as the baptism scene in Godspell. I'm sure that they weren't the same, but to me at 5, they were the same. It was all hippies doing hippie things. And I love that about the 70s, the Jesus of the 70s, that he was very Jewish. He was very hippie. He wore a clown mask. He was that like that. And then of course there was like John Denver and Don McLean. Oh my gosh, I was obsessed with American Pie. I gave a term paper, like an oral report in 8th grade on American Pie. Dan Fogelberg. Joe mentioned black music growing up in the suburbs. Well, I grew up in Cleveland before Detroit, and I went to an integrated elementary school, and I was getting turned on to all kinds of funk and disco in elementary school. There was a song called Car Wash by a band called Rose Royce. The Commodores' Brick House was highly formative in my life. And then of course, Village People. And then in early like 8th, 7th, 8th grade, I started to get into like rock, and then rock wasn't that it was exciting, don't take me the wrong way, but a lot of the rock we were listening to was like Bob Seger and Journey, and these are great artists, but at the time they seemed so much larger than life. I remember one time in the locker room at middle school in Ohio before we moved to Michigan, these guys coming into the locker room who had just been to a Journey concert, and they were just describing Neil Schoen's guitar playing like, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but the guitarist from because Journey were kind of like more prog and psychedelic before they became pop, and he was describing this guitarist like that he was talking about seeing the Mona Lisa or Michelangelo or something. They were just describing Journey's guitar player like he was a Greco-Roman god or something. Anyway, I never forget that. Yeah, and remembering, and at the time not knowing what the heck they were talking about, and thinking I've got to get some of whatever they're having. I want some. Let me smoke some of that stuff that they're smoking. So I was like,
I want to go back to what we were talking about all of us growing up with black music and you growing up in Ohio. I know there was a hotbed of funk and soul in Dayton, bands like Frankie Beverly and Maze and Lakeside. I'm like, did that infect your young soul being an Ohioan?
No, it was the 7-inches that everybody brought to school. They let us bring out a record player during lunch hour, and we would play 7-inch 45s on the record player during lunch hour. I do remember though the song Flashlight by Parliament Funkadelic, and everybody had brought a flashlight from home. They turned out the lights. We played Flashlight by Funkadelic. We all waved our flashlights and made this little light show, and we were like 11. And it was like 1978, maybe. This is freaking insane. I'll have to look out what year Flashlight came out, but I'll never forget that.
I think it was 78.
Was it?
I think so.
Well, we were listening to it when it was hot off, and I'm assuming that the black kids at the school, that their older brothers and their parents were just handing them like really good music, because the kids at the white elementary school were not listening to Funkadelic, and they were just down the street from us. I'm positive.
So, are you pausing or?
I feel like it. Yeah, look how I mean. Everybody needs to get a turn.
I kind of want to jump in now.
Go for it.
Okay, so first and foremost, my gateway drug to rock and roll was Kiss. for better or for worse. First time I saw a picture of them, I thought they were fucking scary. But then I saw a video of them performing, and at the time I was like deep into like reading comic books. And I was like, these guys are the closest thing to like real life, like comic book characters that I'm going to see. And that was my gateway, you know, when my mom joined Columbia House and you're like, Scott, Robin, you can each pick a night track. So I picked Destroyer by Kiss. So, you know, Detroit Rock City spoke to me. All I wanted as a kid was to see Kiss, and my parents wouldn't take me, and I still shake my tiny fist at them. I grew up listening to a lot of AM Gold. Some of it was great, some of it not so great. I was weird in the sense that I didn't think I was allowed to listen to the cool FM rock and roll stations until I was a certain age. And I don't know why I thought that, but I just listened to like the AM stations like Keener 13 and, you know, just listen to like this real strange array of pop music. I remember vividly Lido Shuffle by Boz Scaggs was like one of my favorite songs growing up. I grew up on the Motown. I grew up on the funk, the Philly soul. You know, Kiss was my gateway drug. At some point, I got hooked into Styx, and I was into all the arena rock and all that. And then, as I was into that, I was discovering, you know, like the new wave and warming up to punk. But I got to a point in high school where I'm like, I need to hitch my star to one singular presence to guide me. And I was like, well, I kind of like what I've heard by Bruce, and I owned Darkness on the Edge of Town, and I owned Born to Run. First record I ever bought with my own money was Night Moves. But I'm like, Bruce just seems so fucking cool, you know, especially like standing up against the Venetian blinds on the cover of Darkness, like the rock and roll version of Mad Max. You want to get out of here? You talk to me. That spoke to me. And I'm like, I'm hitching my wagon to Bruce's star, and I never looked back. I remember in college, you know, liking, you know, because of Bruce, you know, I really kind of dug, you know, I didn't know it was called roots rock, but I was attracted to like the rockabilly and the stuff like that. And I thought, I never liked country music, but I probably would if I could find somebody who made country music with some grit and some balls. And then I discovered Jason and the Scorchers and Lone Justice. And I was never the same because they gave me that cowpunk juice that I needed. But then I would hear like Maria McKee singing Don't Toss Us Away, or Jason singing The Rope is Stretching, but the knot is still tied. And I'm like, okay, I love the cowpunk, but I love these ballads because they're doing them in the most pure and unsentimental way. And that led me to other roots rock, the Long Riders, Guadalcanal Diary. It led me to like pure, you know, like I remember the first time I walked into the country music section of a record store. I walked in there trepidatiously, and I bought Steve Earle and I bought Dwight Yoakam, and it's just from there, you know, game on. I discovered folk music. I discovered, you know, singer-songwriters. I would say the next, I'm like, obviously it's the next, I'd say before that, you know, discovering REM, you know, getting into them mostly because of Joe, embracing U2 because of my friendship with Andy. And those took me into spaces far and wide. But I would also say that the French duo Air made a huge impact on me. I was already into trip hop. I liked Massive Attack, but then I heard Moon Safari by Air, and it was game over. I discovered bands like 07. I was like, all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I dig lounge music, and not ironically, I could listen to people like Esquivel. I would go back to like things like like Brazilian pop and stuff like that. I'm like as a kid, most kids, I didn't like jazz or country, and my dad was a jazz snob. as I got older, I liked jazz, but I think, what really, I was already knee deep into jazz, but at some point in the early 2000s, I realized how much I love Hammond B3 organ. And not just in rock and roll, but I'd like anytime you get somebody noodling in a jazz setting. And I discovered Jimmy Smith. So my go-to now is when I go record shopping and nothing is jumping out at me, I'm like, do they have any Jimmy Smith? And, from there, all of these things, listening to Air, listening to Jimmy Smith, it's like all of a sudden I'm into like Antonio Carlos Jobim, Os Mutantes, what's his face, Cayetano Veloso. Just at one point, everything becomes tangled. But I'd say the biggest touchstones, I'm like, Kiss brought me to the party. Styx kind of took me to a different party. Bruce showed me the way. The whole cowpunk thing was enlightening for me. It was like a big giant spotlight on me, as was discovering bands like Air and getting into that whole downbeat trip hop thing. And I'm looking forward to like whatever I stumble over tomorrow and where it may take me, and just the sky's the limit.
I love that. That's awesome. I want to, let's see, what can I share about? I wish I had prepared like a full essay talking about the through line like Gus did. That was really good. What I did prepare like Gus did was name dropping an 8th grade teacher. In middle school, the band director taught a like general elective course for students called History of Rock and Roll. So he taught us about like Elvis and played Dark Side of the Rainbow, and the project that Dark Side of the Rainbow, where you listen to Dark Side of the Moon with Somewhere Over the Rainbow with Wizard of Oz. So we like spent a class period doing that. But our project at the end of the semester was pick a genre, do a little poster board, name 4 bands. And I picked grunge because I'm born in Seattle. My brother likes grunge. Let's do a little deep dive on that. And so that was the first time I'm just like, what is Nirvana? What is Soundgarden? My mom and I had a CD my brother gave me, which was Alice in Chains' Jar of Flies. We had that for a long time. So I'm like, I know I like Alice in Chains. But that was kind of a cool turning point for my investigation into music. And it was 8th grade. So that's just like exactly the time to start discovering music. For me, it was the era when everyone was burning CDs for each other. So I remember sitting in an 8th grade class saying that Jeremy could look at my homework notes if I gave him a burnt CD of Slipknot. So there were dealings going on. But in that same era, I received an album that opened my eyes to like indie rock. Like everything up to that point was, stuff my parents taught me, or like the hard rock stuff that my brother was always into. But when I listened to the White Stripes' Elephant, I said, oh, like something can be like happy and rocking, and it's not kids' music, but like something can be so interesting and ear catching. And just that whole genre opened up to me and allowed me to start like exploring rock music in my own way and looking at alternative music. So that was that one album I picked out as like kind of important to me, opening up a genre. And besides just following everything my brother recommended to me, even my intro into EDM was thanks to him. One of the first Burt CDs he gave me back in the early aughts was a like trance mix, just like a DJ set on a Burt CD. But like in high school, I asked him to recommend a music podcast where it's just like a DJ set. So I started listening to that. And then later in like 2015, as I was becoming, remember just sitting and doing laundry at the laundromat going, I need something to listen to while I do my laundry. And I asked my brother, what's the good House and Trance podcast right now? And he's like, check out Above and Beyond Group Therapy. So I started listening to that. And that was around when their album, We Are All We Need, came out, which is 10 years old now. So I've been an Above and Beyond fan for a decade. I think they've been around for 20, but that opened the doors to just following everything in their genre and further into just EDM in general. So I think Above and Beyond it is one of my favorite artists, but also was kind of important turning me on to just loving it as an adult too. Those were the two that I wanted to share about. So
I had no idea that you were from Seattle.
Yeah. I was born up there, and my brother had his first career in his 20s working at the rock radio station there. He was doing the metal show for that time. So
that explains a lot about you.
Yeah.
And Scott, I think you filled in a lot for me in my journey, because I kind of stopped at 8th grade and what I was able to talk about during my segment, and you filled in a lot of the gaps. And Amy, I also had people trying to get me into like electronica. I went through a brief, very intense electronica and EDM and trance phase in the early 2000s. And it was also because people were giving me stuff, and actually some DJs showed up where I lived and put on a rave at my house. That always helps.
That's awesome.
Show up at your house and put on a rave. Rick, I think I'm in
Please.
time.
I want to hear Rick.
No, you're all good. When people ask me what genre of music do you like to listen to, I always find it hard to give an answer, and I don't know why that is. But I was really excited about this, Gus. This was a great topic, and I didn't hit childhood, although I might dip into there as I'm talking. I kind of went to the I'll call it the CD phase of my listening. So this is college and post college, mid to late 80s, early 90s. And I had at first I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about what led me to Americana, but I don't know what the hell Americana is, to be quite honest with you still. I know I love listening to artists that are called Americana.
Thank you. Americana is a marketing term.
Yeah. So this first genre, I'm going to call American rock about America. But these are generally the albums that I use when people, if someone was to say, well, what radicalized you? So here they are. It's John Mellencamp's Scarecrow, Bruce Springsteen Live 75 to 85, especially a song like Seeds. It just blew me away. Neil Young's Freedom, Keep on Rocking in the Free World, and the 1,000 Points of Light. This sense that music could say something profound, or could be cultural criticism, and just kick ass along the way. That was those were big for me. And Gus, I had a different term, but if it's okay, I'm gonna steal your term of grandiosity, because that appeals to me. This is where the big idea, as our our vertically challenged Irish frontman Bono would talk about the big idea. I've always been moved by music that just kind of reaches for something huge and tries to speak into something huge. So this is U2's War and the Joshua Tree. I was in the mid to late 80s. I was introduced to The Call through their album Reconciled. Just really hit me in a way like that. Midnight Oil's Diesel and Dust, the Beds Are Burning, the whole, this whole notion that rock and three chords and the truth, and you could say something righteous and still sound good. A couple other things that I'll mention. My route into country was basically through what again, a marketing term, alt country, because it was flat out country music. I was introduced to Lyle Lovett with Joshua Judge's Ruth, and captivated by his quirky personality and lyrics, and yet here he is getting me to listen to Western swing and traditional country. And
don't forget his tall hair.
Absolutely. Speaking of tall hair, I was also listening to Katie Lang at the time, Ingenue, Angel with Lariat. And I think some of that, this cosmic country, alt country, came from my childhood love of the Monkees. My favorite Monkee was Mike Nesmith. Songs like "Listen to the Band," that whole thing. And I think, lastly, my love of indie, female indie folk singer songwriters kind of coalesced around this time, the early '90s, with artists like Suzanne Vega's Solitude Standing. We talked about Tracy Chapman's debut album in this group. That was monumental for me. And then I was introduced to the Indigo Girls through Swampophilia, and then made my way back into their catalog. So those were sort of the, Gus, you asked about transition records. Those are transition records for me that have kind of made its way into my listening now. So
nice.
Cool.
So we have some eclectic history in here.
I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I left some things on the table. Am I the only one?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. There's never enough time.
Oh yeah, like I told Gus that I could do the whole hour myself without taking a breath. Like I left out my brief hip hop. You talked about hip. I was in a huge phase where I was really, really into Boogie Down Productions and Public Enemy in the late '80s, and then in the early '90s, I got really, really into Arrested Development. And then Amy, do you remember when you learned that Spearhead used to be cool? There was I had a huge Michael Franti phase at the beginning of the '90s when he was Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy, and then the first two Spearhead albums. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
I saw Disposable Heroes opening for you too.
At the Pontiac Silverdome, you did.
With Primus. So I forgot to talk about Power Pop, which is another one of my big loves. And I always loved it. I just didn't know what it was called. I thought, new wave, skinny tie. I always loved Cheap Trick, but I think it all coalesced when the late, great Josh Sparbeck introduced me to Big Star. And, Rick, you were talking about, female artists of the 90s. I don't know where I would be without Liz Phair's Exile in Guyville. I'm like, that was a game changer for me.
That's still nigh on perfect.
Yeah.
I changed my name to to Jeffrey Lee Pierce because this is one of the records I acquired.
Yep.
Who knows this?
Oh, it's Gun Club.
Gun Club, Fire of Love. Karen Widman, a mutual friend of the Michigan kids here, turned me on to that. It's one of the most thrilling and terrifying records. Talking about genre, that it's a genre of its own. It's like LA punk fused with country blues.
Yeah.
And it's a white guy, Jeffrey Lee Pierce. He's passed. He lived hard and wrote himself in wet, but he was actually also the president of the Blondie fan club. So he's like a white guy who just tapped into this amazing vein of something. And this record's foul. There's several uses of the N-word in character that still are off-putting a little bit today, but it's part of the power of that record. So I want to talk about that in him because Jason and the Scorchers, Lone Justice, he was doing something similar, but much, much filthier and more primal than even them. Out west with country blues, just a killer record.
Gun Club is one of those bands. I'm like, I think you're the first person to ever tell me about Gun Club. For whatever reason, I never got around to checking them out, but they were always on the list of I need to investigate them because I know I would be a huge fan. But while we're on the subject of bands in that ilk, and I don't know if they fit in, but Joe and Joe introduced me to Green on Red, and they're probably one of my favorite bands of all time, and probably one of the most underrated bands of that whole Paisley underground scene. Just something about them, from Dan Stewart's unhinged vocal delivery to Chris Kakavas's, Farfisa organ. It was just like the perfect storm of psychedelic freak out.
They hopped genres in their career. One of those.
Oh yeah, I'm like when Chuck Prophet came
period,
along.
entry period, psychedelic period.
Yeah.
If we'd gotten further into the 80s, I would have had to have talked about punk. I mean, I got really into punk, and that lasted into the 90s, but the whole SST label wasn't really punk. It was something else. So like Husker Du and the Meat Puppets were humongously formative to me. And I've been recently getting into this band called Hotline TNT.
Right.
And I was thinking, oh my God, they sound just like early Husker Du. Come to find out that the guy, I just met him and I can't say his name. Anyway, the lead singer, he's amazing. He has a basketball fanzine, which is totally weird. But anyway, Husker Du was his like go-to thing. And he just there's a podcast called Talk House where they have two different band members instead of having a podcast host interview, you just have two people in different bands. So Bob Mould and I'm going to have to look it up. The guy from Hotline TNT.
Wow.
So cool. And their new album, Raspberry Moon. As we're pushing into the end of the show, I'm just going to start dropping in new recs. There's one.
Speaking of Husker Du, I don't know if I would be the human being that I am without the Replacements.
Yeah. Yeah, they were. Who's from Northern Alberta?
I got that lyric wrong. It's Southern Alberta, the Big Bone Gal from Southern Alberta.
Okay, it's an amazing song.
Yeah, it is.
I haven't heard it in 20 years, but I still hear it in my head.
Yeah.
Joy.
Gus and Amy mentioned 8th grade, which, and what they mentioned around 8th grade, gave me some osteoporosis while I was listening to it. But it made me think, what was I listening to in 8th grade? And I was jamming out to What a Fool Believes. And what an influential record that was in many ways. Just as catchy as all get out.
Yep.
And then much later, I realized it was like a gut-wrenching look at a guy who had absolutely no clue. But anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I dug that. I had the 45 and I got Minute by Minute for my bar mitzvah. So I'm feeling you. There's no denying that, Michael McDonald is the pimp of Yacht Rock.
There was a venue called the Greystone in Dearborn, Michigan, which was the punk venue when we were in high school. And I was so scared to go the first time. I mean, I was like, I thought, my parents would have to call in a search party after, or I might come home bloody or I might get accidentally dosed and not know it. But I loved it so much. And I saw Suicidal Tendencies. That might've been the first one
I was with you there.
Okay. But then the show to end all shows was Butthole Surfers, with the opening act being Scratch Acid. And I just it was so incredible. It was just so mind blowing. And then of course we got into Sonic Youth. Sonic Youth were humongous around that time. So the Meat Puppets, Husker Du, you mentioned the Replacements, Butthole Surfers, Sonic Youth.
Wait, Sonic Youth didn't play at the Greystone.
No, but that's where like all of this goes. Oh, and then the Shimmy Disc label in New York, in Brooklyn, got me into anti-folk, Roger Manning, Bongwater. I just saw that Ann Magnuson is still active as an artist.
Oh, that's awesome.
Bongwater. Oh my gosh, what an incredible band. I just there's been nothing like that. ever since. I'm trying to think who's some of the other shimmy disc. Oh, King Missile, Detachable Penis. That guy, Jesus was way cool.
Awesome song.
King Missile is just everything. And John Hall is on Facebook. He posts like a poem like every day, just about. So you can follow John S. Hall on Facebook. But King Missile, oh my gosh, that was something else. And then we haven't gotten into all this stuff, The Cure and the Smiths. And
well, you know what though? They're kind of like Pantheon. It's like they're like Mount Rushmore. We don't need to talk about them.
I mean, I don't know that Smith show at the Royal Oak Music Theater. Joe, you were with me when we went to see Billy Bragg at Joe's Star Lounge, but it was at the Armory.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I never did get to see Billy.
Now it's condos.
Damn.
The Armory. Sweet irony. Yeah, you just set up in a corner of the big marching area.
Oh man.
That's what they use armories for, right? For marching around.
Eugene Chadbourne, Camper Van Beethoven. It was everything. And then so Alan, Joe and I've been talking to Alan Covan. Alan Covan had a record store called Play It Again, and he would just let me go and borrow out of the used bin, and I would it was like a lending library. I would just take a stack.
Nice.
Well, it was for my radio show on WSHJ, Scott. I would go and take a stack each week, and then I'd play a couple of them on the radio, and then I would give a shout out to Play It Again Records, and then I'd bring back my loaned records and get a different batch the next week.
That's great.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was the It store. There was a lot of great stores then, but
oh yeah.
Anybody else have anything new to recommend?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'll just go through it real quickly. Lately, I'm not going to hold shit up because we all know how poorly that goes. But I've been digging the new one by Lord Huron, the new Wet Leg, Durand Jones and the Indications. They are from Bloomington, Indiana, home of John Mellencamp, and their new record is just like cut from the same cloth as like the Stylistics and the Chi-Lites. The Vandaliers, their latest, Life Behind Bars, is just great alt country in the vein of old 97s. Interesting story about Adeem recently being on tour with them, and I'm piecing it together, but apparently somebody in their organization asked him to change something about his set, and so he just politely excused himself from that tour, which bums me out because that would have been an awesome show. In addition to all that, I'm digging the new S.G. Goodman record, and of course, I have been sampling the new box set from that little-known singer-songwriter by the name of Bruce Springsteen. Of the 7 lost albums on Tracks 2, I would have to say that Somewhere North of Nashville is my favorite. And I'm happy to have a more expanded conversation about it off the camera. But that's what I've been listening to.
All right.
I'm still in festival playlist mode, just sampling what I'll get a chance to see later this year. Deep Tropics is coming up next month in August with Alice in Wonderland and my favorite Lane 8 on the headline. And then Shaky Knees is coming around the corner with My Chemical Romance as the top headline, which is going to be a riot. But I'm excited to go see Devo. I have a friend that I met at Bonnaroo that you guys would get along with, and he's coming on Sunday just for the Devo show, basically. And I'm stoked to go see them with him.
One with B-52s and Lena Lovitch.
No, but Weird Al will be there.
Oh, nice. Oh, wait a minute. You're right. Devo was at Shaky. That's right. I thought you were talking about. Yeah, I want to see Devo, and I especially want to see them with the 52s and Lena. But
yeah, that sounds like a cool tour. What else? And there's another EDM and jam fest that the Bonnaroo group is going to called Halloween. So that has the string cheese incident as the like quadruple headline. It'll be just so much fun. Very excited. But anyways, there's a new Tame Impala track that's kind of housey, and I'm feeling it. And Above and Beyond just released a whole new album that sounds super above and beyond, and that makes me super happy.
Oh, you've been waiting all day to say that.
Amy, Halloween sounds very similar to Electric Forest. You're aware of Electric Forest? It's kind of the same thing. It like the jam and electronica fused together and had a family.
Yep.
I went there the very first year before it was Electric Forest when it was still Rothbury. I had the time of my life at that festival.
Fun fact about Rothbury: during the summer of 1988, the band I was in, Ivan to Jesus, we had summer jobs at the Double J Ranch, which was on the grounds of what is now the Electric Forest.
Yeah.
I know. Cool. I can still see it. It's a beautiful place. It was a beautiful time.
It blew my mind when I found out, wait a minute, they're having a festival there? And in my mind, I try to imagine like where all the things were happening.
Yeah, I would love to go to that one someday.
Rick, I know you want to tell us about some new records that just came out.
Please.
Sure, I'll mention a few. Scott has already touched on Wet Legs Moisturizer, which I just think is a great record. I've been listening a lot to lately. The new U.S. Girls, Scratch It. I picked up on my niece introduced me to Dylan Gossett. I listened to his new record recently, Westward. I thought that was very good. Finally got around to listening to Stereo Lab. That's a wild ride, but I really enjoyed that. And I have not been able to get enough of our favorite Appalachian Kentucky Hare Krishna loving Hunter. But Andrew, I'm going to let you take the baton from there and tell us.
I don't know. I'm completely freaking out because I had low to no expectations. I didn't agree that Rustin' in the Rain was a bad record. We're talking about Tyler Childers of Eastern Kentucky. I didn't realize, one, how absolutely popular he is and how he keeps doing all these so-called woke things but can't get canceled. Like other artists do this and then they get thrown under the proverbial divided, but the right side and the left side still both love him. And he just released a psychedelic rock country funk album called Snipe Hunter, produced by Rick Rubin. And it is mind-blowingly good. And I'm so addicted to it. And it's the exact, Rick Wednesday is the exact anniversary of when I went to see Jack White at his pop-up in Athens. It was July 30th, 2024. So July 30th, 2025, Tyler Childers is playing a 500 ticket lottery. You had to get a lottery ticket to get a ticket at Dinosaur World in Cave City, Kentucky, right by Mammoth Cave. It's like a little dinosaur park. A little kiddie park to learn about dinosaurs, and he's going to do a show there. And I might just drive up there without a ticket just to be around Tyler Childers playing in a dinosaur park. I don't know. I told Rick we should get guest list, but I don't know how to do that. But I think if I had expectations, I probably, because he re-released two songs, Nose on the Grindstone and Onita, which are already in the catalog and in his live set. And then on the pre-save, at least the pre-save that I looked at on like Apple and Spotify, they had all the tracks were blinded out. Like, so you didn't even know the names of the tracks. And I don't think very many of these tracks were even leaked or anything. So when the album drops on Friday, I'm just completely flabbergasted, gobsmacked. I'm just blown away. And I just haven't been able to stop listening to it. It reminds me of when Tool released 10,000 Days. What was the other records that I just became so completely, just enthralled with this record. It was like when In Rainbows came out too, and everybody's talking about it. It's fun to go online and on Reddit and on Facebook, and everybody's talking about the same album. And there's like an entire family of there's an entire class of memes, about the album. It's a whole cultural moment. And I just love that kind of stuff. He played a show today at noon at Nashville at some restaurant, made a snipe sandwich. I didn't even know what snipe was until, and apparently in the album, there's a cutout of a snipe, which is apparently some kind of a fowl that you eat. I had no idea. I also asked Rick to help me decode the language.
The snipe is a non-existent bird.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
dodo.
It's a bird. It might be like go take a long walk off a short pier. I don't know.
So it's a great episode of Atlanta about it.
So is it like an inside joke in the South, kind of, or what? What the fuck is it?
Yeah. So
they take inexperienced hunters out snipe hunting,
right.
And so it's just a big inside joke.
So
what the fuck did he put in the snipe sandwich today?
So two things. First and foremost,
probably vegetarian.
Gus, speaking of Atlanta, I have two words for you: Teddy Perkins and Andy. My first exposure to Tyler was when he toured with Sturgill, and they were playing in a huge arena here in Charlotte. And I'm like, wow, okay, I didn't know Sturgill was that big. And there were a lot of people there for Tyler. I'd never heard his music. He was fine. It was kind of like middle of the road country. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't like gross country. It wasn't like bro country. But I left there feeling like, okay, it wasn't bad, but it didn't really. And I like, some of the woke stuff that he's done, because that means he's a good human being. But when you're telling me that he's got this psychedelic funk mashup, I'm like, I need to hear it, because I'm all of a sudden, it's like, okay, it sounds like some of the best stuff that Sturgill did when you talk about that description. So now I'm excited to check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I only because of the first time I saw him in 2019, I wasn't sure if he was bro or not. Right. Some of the bros definitely like him, but musically his entire canon, his entire catalog is incredibly diverse. It's not just one thing, and he does have a very distinctive voice that is somehow kind of gets inside your head, and but we're over the time, and I could talk all night about Tyler Childers right now. So what's really funny though, Amy, is in my journey away from country, because I had such a bad experience last year at Charles Wesley Godwin and Red Clay Strays, and then but Tyler's brought me fully back in, to country. I want to go to Healing Appalachia, which is the concert he's doing around addiction awareness in September with a whole bunch of people. One thing, and if anybody else has any other albums they want to mention, because some people didn't really talk that much. I don't think Gus did his new releases. We can go over time, but Jesse Wells released his second album of the year, and I think it's fantastic. I think Jesse Wells is just extraordinary.
He's got a new single out with Margot Price.
The first single from Margot's new album that drops next month, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Well, her first single, "Don't Let the Bastards Get You Down," is fucking awesome.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I didn't share because this month has been insane for new music, and a good amount of it you'll hear about in December. So keeping it on the down low.
Nice.
But this has been a very, very fun month for me when it comes to new music. I've had a really good time.
Okay, who's hosting next time?
We better go offline and have a meeting. Anybody else want to say anything about any other albums before we sign off? Any new albums?
I'm good.
We'll be back sometime next month, and we're everybody stay online to have a brief committee meeting about next month's plans. Thanks for coming to Nerdcast, the Music Nerds Record Club. July broadcast. Have a great night.